What's the haps? I'm Maroka, and welcome to Spiral Nights! It is patch day, we have some patch notes to go through. It's just kind of a prize box kind of day, so there's going to be a couple of new accessories. I'm going to take a quick look at the Supply Depot. I'm going to have a look at the new accessories for you. It's not going to be anything terribly exciting, but we'll have a look at them anyway. I kid you. It is the Gunner update. It is the long-awaited, much anticipated, hotter than Half-Life 3 Gunner update. It is the one and only that is here for us. We have a whole bunch of patch notes, and I'm going to go through them. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what's in the game at this moment in time, and you're going to have to bear with me, because it's going to be going on. It's a long shopping list of things that we've got. We'll start at the top with the new guns that have been added to the game. In the auto gun line, very much similar to your your Blitz Needle, I think it'll be the main one that most people have. We now have a shadow option, which will be Dark Chain Gun, Black Chain Gun, and Grim Repeater, which, if memory serves from those kind of leaks we had a while back, I think is the one that kind of looks like it looks like a machine gun from sort of thing you might see in Call of Duty. It looks kind of weird. I mean, they may have changed the model since then. I can't tell you at this point in time, but way back when we first saw it, it kind of didn't quite fit the style of the game, but there you go. In the Blaster line, the kind of thing where most people probably have a Valiance in that set, I suspect, is your 5-star iconic one. We now have Shadow, Elemental, and Piercing options there, 3 through 5-star variants. In the Pulsar line, obviously we've got the one that is, well, clearly here in my hand. That is your Pulsar, a big ball of electric lightning stuff. That now comes in a fire variant and a freeze variant, so instead of just going pow 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 and electrocuting people, you can now go pow 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 and set people on fire or freeze them in place. Personally, I'm quite intrigued by looking into the fiery option. The fiery option sounds like a lot of fun to me. I think that'd be kind of cool. We also have the Magnus line, which was one of the few piercing options in the game previously. It was a rarity. I don't think many people ran with the Magnus, but we now have a freeze/shadow option there as well. We also have something that kind of always seemed like it was missing from the game, which is the piercing variant on the Antigua line. The Antigua always split into Shadow and Elemental variants, and it always seemed like it was missing a piercing one. Now we have the piercing 4- and 5-star versions, which is the Raptor and the Gilded Griffin. And if I may say so, I think I'll be going after one of those on my alt, because it's badly needed. And with that in mind, I may just be starting up that series again, so keep an eye out for that one in the very near future. We have more than just weapons, we have armors! I will take this moment to note, I came to the Hall of Heroes for a reason, because I kind of figured Daxon might have something to say on the matter. As it turns out, he kind of doesn't. He doesn't, if we go down this list, sell any of the new things. We've got lots of new guns, lots of new armors. He ain't got any of them. You can't come here and buy any of these things. I came here thinking I might be able to pick up one or two, if not all. Nope, none. No such thing. No, you cannot get them from here. As far as I can make out, Basil, down in the Clockworks terminals, is the only way you can get any of these recipes. So you're going to have to go Clockworks hunting, which, well, to be fair, the arcade doesn't get used too much these days, so it gives you good incentive to delve down in there. Get yourself a bit of a party together, go gather up your friends and go down into the arcade, because you're going to be hunting for some recipes now, especially if you want to go down the gunning route, and I think a lot of people will. Anyway, without further ado, let's move on to some armors, because obviously we have a whole bunch of armors. We have, it's not well explained, I will say, in the patch notes, so I've kind of got to figure this out for myself a little bit. We've got a 1-star padded armor and cap, which kind of stands alone on its own. We then have a Pathfinder set, which is marked as being 2 through 5-star, but it only lists... Well, that's 4 different types of things, and it only lists 3 different names, which is kind of confusing. We've got a Woven, a Plated, and a Sacred variant. Each of those then splits into Falcon, Firefly, Grizzly, and Snakebite. So you get a Woven Falcon Pathfinder armor and helmet, Woven Firefly Pathfinder armor and helmet, Woven Grizzly Pathfinder armor and helmet, Woven Snakebite Pathfinder armor and helmet. These kind of get a little tricky. I imagine it'll take a little while to actually get the hang of what all of these actually mean, but there you go. Then you've obviously got Plated as the tier up, and then you've got Sacred as the tier up again. It then seems as though that then splits into 2 different, in fact 3 different things once you get to 5-star, I would wager, which is then it splits into Sacred Falcon Pathfinder armor, Sacred Falcon Gorilla Armor, Sacred Falcon Hazard Armor and Helmet, as well as all the other variants as well. So there's 3 different variants at 5-star on that particular line. There's then another entirely different set. We've got the Sentinel Armor and Helmet, again 2 through 5-star. I will note the Pathfinder is normal stroke piercing resistance, the Sentinel is normal stroke elemental resistance. That's all they say on that, so that's all I can give you on these. We've got that, then it has the woven plated sacred tiers again. We have, again, it's divided into Falcon, Firefly, Grizzly, Snakebite, and then you've got Sentinel, Keeper, and Wraith are the 3 different ones it splits into. And then further down, we've also got another 2 through 5-star variant, which is the Shade set. Got... Actually, I'll tell you what, I've just missed there's a very tiny line at the top of each of these sets that I missed. Basically, the Woven is going to be 3-star, Plated is 4-star, Sacred is 5-star, and it doesn't have a prefix at the 2-star. It's going to be Shade Armor, then Woven Shade Armor, then Plated Shade Armor, then Sacred Shade Armor. So Shade is your Shadow variant. Again, these come in the Woven Plated Sacred variants, and again, they come in the 4 different flavors. What the difference between the 4 are, I really can't actually tell you at this point in time, because I haven't seen any in the wild, so you're going to have to find those out for yourself, I'm afraid. Can't tell you that just from patch notes, because they aren't telling. We have a bunch of mechanic and balance changes, which we were kind of expecting. All handguns have increased movement speed whilst firing and charging, increased reloading movement speed, reduced cooldown animations for all guns that stopped movement. Those 3 changes across the board are going to give a lot more mobility to pretty much all guns. Basically, when you're walking around and firing, you're going to be able to get away from enemies a lot better. I mean, normally when you would fire, your movement would slow slightly. I guess it still does a tiny bit, but very, very little now. Your mobility is going to be so much higher whilst you're gunning. That's going to make gunning a lot more competitive with something like swordsmanship? I don't know. I'm sure there's a term for that I'm not particularly thinking of at this moment in time. But either way, guns are going to be a lot more competitive with swords as a primary weapon. Previously, guns kind of fell into a bit of a backseat role. You can't really use it as a primary weapon too effectively. It's just kind of outclassed by swords. Now, I feel like a lot of these changes are going to make the guns a lot more useful as a primary weapon, which is a much needed change. The Magnus line, which we already touched on, which is to say we'll have a new variant. The Magnus line, its charge attack now pierces through monsters, so if you get a big crowd and you fire at it with a Magnus line, it's going to hit everything in the crowd, which is going to be kind of cool. The bullet speed has been slightly decreased, perhaps to compensate for the fact that you can now take out an entire pack of things with it. And the charge attack no longer prones the wielder. I'm not quite sure what that means. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with the Magnus. It sounds like it kind of knocked you down, but I've really not got a lot of experience with the Magnus, so I'm not sure what quite that means. Again, I think that kind of ties into the increased mobility for guns thing. The auto gun line is decreased wind-up time for attack, which I think means basically you're going to be attacking faster with it. Increased range and bullet speed. Bear in mind that we're talking about improving the Blitz Needle here. I mean, the Blitz Needle was already one of the most overpowered weapons in the game. I know it's a gunner, I just thought the guns weren't very useful, but the Blitz Needle was one of the most overpowered guns in the game. They just made that more powerful, so go crazy with your Blitz Needle until that gets nerfed. The Antigua line, all family damage bonuses, which is generally your high-level variants, kind of had a medium damage bonus. Now they have a high damage bonus, so they're going to be even more effective against specific families of enemies. And increased polygon count for all models. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Let us take a look at that. We have... let us find an Antigua! There we go. Just take a look at those 2 models. We've got one of them is the shiny new Antigua model with its increased high poly count. And next to it is, well, obviously it's not terribly comparable, but it's something that hasn't had an increased poly count. You can kind of look at the back of the gun is a good example. Indeed, look at the grip of the gun. You kind of got, on the Polaris, you kind of got a lot of hexagonal, octagonal kind of things going on. You got a lot of squared off edges. On the Antigua, that's looking very circular. It's looking nice. That's kind of a nice change. Admittedly, when you're in the heat of combat, you're probably not going to notice details like that too much. We're talking about a very, very small object in an elaborate world, but hey, If they're going down the route of increasing poly count on all the items, that's kind of nice. Admittedly, I would say for performance issues with people with lower end computers, maybe some kind of level of detail options would be useful there so that people who aren't having such a nice time of it with frame rate, if you start increasing poly count, people's frame rates are going to suffer, and it might be nice to have an option to turn that back down for people who aren't having such a good time with it. But there you go. So we've got increased poly count on things. The Polaris line, which I wield in my hand, has increased bullet speed. Woo! Look how fast those bullets fly. Yeah, that's a thing. They shoot faster, because the Polaris obviously wasn't powerful enough. This is another one that was a pretty powerful gun, to be fair, and yeah, now it shoots even faster. Admittedly, it does have reduced damage, so perhaps that's a trade-off. Perhaps that's fairly balanced now. So it's going to do less damage, but it's going to shoot a lot faster. I will, if I'm allowed to change my loadout here. I think I probably am. Let's put the Blitz Needle on and just have a quick check, see how that one stacks up. This is worth checking out. So I guess the wind-up time is probably applies more to the standard shot. So it's just kind of, yeah, it fires a lot faster rather than taking a second to draw the gun and fire. It's like you just whip it out and start shooting. It's pretty cool. So there you go. That is the difference in your Blitz Needle. Admittedly, obviously, I would kind of need an old version of the game to make a direct comparison against what it looked like, but it feels a little bit faster than it did. Just speaking from a very sort of subjective point of view here, really. We also have the Catalyzer line. Normal attacks now cling to mobs and charge shots detonate them, which is completely the inverse of what they used to do. Previously, it used to be charge shots cling to the mobs and you had to fire a normal shot to detonate it, which was a long, slow, laborious, and really inconvenient way of fighting anything whatsoever in the game. Nobody was willing to do that, which is why nobody really used those types of guns. This makes a lot more sense. This makes it a lot more viable in combat. At least I suspect it does. I'll definitely be willing to give it a go and test it out. I think we're going to see a lot more catalyzers in the game now, because in people's hands, because it's going to be a more viable combat option. The charge shot also now has an aura around it that activates any catalyzer orbitals within it. So I guess you kind of don't need to necessarily hit the enemy with the charge shot. You just kind of need to go near it, I guess is what that's going on. And then there's a bunch of miscellaneous changes. Stun Gun has a increased stun chance slightly. Super Stun Gun has added stun chance to regular attacks. Frost Gun increased freeze chance. There's just kind of increased status chances across the board for most things that inflict statuses by the looks of things, to be honest. And then there's a few bug fixes as well, but that is kind of the bulk of it, really. So, ta-da! That is a Gunner update for you. That is a reasonably lengthy patch notes for you. This calls for a minor celebration, I guess. Let's throw some slightly rare confettis into the air. Woo! Winter confetti and I only have 3 of them, but it's worth it. It's the Gunner updates. Some leaf confettis. Ta-da! Ta-da! As your Gunner update. Obviously, here I've just kind of reeled off a bunch of patch notes. I'm going to definitely get stuck into this myself. I may even drop some money on some energy. Who knows? I'm going to try and get some of this stuff crafted, and I will be definitely going out to try and give you a field test on as much of this stuff as I can. I'll be trying to get some of the 5-star new guns, maybe some of the new armors in the next week or so, and I will then make a video giving a bit of a field test to show you how it works out in the field. So there's something there to look forward to as well. But for now, happy hunting for the new recipes, definitely, and go get crafting. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Maroka. This has been some Spiral Knights patch notes. I'll see you next time.